Welcome to the Resonate podcast with Aideen. I'm Aideen Riada, and my guest today is Liz Ellery, and she is a good friend of mine. I'm so excited to be chatting with her today. You guys are going to enjoy a really interesting conversation. And Liz is a branding and website designer with over 15 years' experience. Her sole aim is to make her clients fall in love with their online presence. She's helped over 100 business owners shine online by creating truly soul deep, authentic brands using her intuitive design skills. And it's the intuitive piece that I think is one of the amazing things about you, Liz, that I really want to let people hear about, because how many people really do trust their intuition? I'm not sure that many do.
I know. And thank you so much for having me. I think more and more we're hearing about intuition, and a lot when you listen to, which I do, a lot of business podcasts. And when you ever have these entrepreneurs on, they always say whenever they've done something in business and they've gone against their gut, which is what, everybody says when it's your intuition, when you go against your gut, then you kind of make a wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to follow that feeling a lot more, which is how I design. And it's very emotive. And I listen to, you know, how I feel inside. It's quite a visceral body like thing for me when I'm designing for somebody, and also like in the heart. And do I feel that this is my client's authentic self that I'm designing? And it's all energy based as well.
Have you always trusted your intuition?
Yeah, it's just been something quite innate within me that, oh, and I've done it a lot throughout my life, especially in my 30s. Um, and even actually from a very young age, I remember knowing exactly what I wanted to do, and I never deviated from that. And from the age of 13 to 30, I had a career that I wanted to do since that young age, and I just followed that intuition. And then when something didn't start feeling right again, that's when I made a change. And yeah, I've always been this way.
Wow, that's such a blessing, I guess, because I know for myself, I do tend to veer off track. You start to look at somebody else and what they're doing, and I have
Mm,
a strong self doubt that can kind of come in, and then I can get a little bit off track. But the intuitive part is where all the good stuff has happened for my business as well. So I really
mm.
understand how beneficial it is.
I think when you just said that actually, I say that I always follow my intuition, and I do with big decisions. So, and I am getting better at fine tuning it more
Mm.
in the smaller things. So, when I remember feeling very unhappy in towards the end of my 20s, early 30s with my job. And, I loved my job and I liked who I worked with, but something didn't feel right. And I think it was like, there's more to life than this. And I didn't know what it was. And I actually ended up in hospital with a really severe pain in my stomach. And the first thing the doctor said to me was he felt my stomach, and then he said, "Are you happy?" And then I burst into tears. And I think that was such a turning point for me to be like, okay, this is actually my body is like, that's a visceral thing of you need to do something different. And so I started following my intuitions, doing different things and being okay with that not being the exact path maybe that I wanted. I had such a clear vision. I always wanted to be a fashion designer. And that's what I wanted to do from the age of 13. I went to college, university, got a job in London, was doing it for 10 years. And then when you don't know what you want to do, that is where your intuition, you just sort of follow these little paths and keep going along them. And because it wasn't this big, almighty, like thing that I wanted to do, like the fashion design, I just followed those intuitively. And then when I landed on what I'm doing now, which is being a personal branding and website designer, and I'm also starting to do some other more spiritual law of attraction things as well in my business now. Was how you just said there, how you sort of veer off course. Like, I know, like, the main path that I want to be on, but it is, the comparison does come in when I think my business, I was up and down for 5 years, like, like massive, feast and famine, like huge months and then very quiet months. And that's where I start following these other people and thinking I should be doing it like that. I should be doing it like this. And it was only when I did a couple of things. I spoke to another website designer who designed like me, who was an intuitive designer, because I only know a few at the time. And she said to me that how she gets her business, and she's very successful financially, was all from referrals. And I thought, well, that's not okay. It can't just be for referrals. But when she said that, it kind of gave me permission. And I just let that be okay. And that was how I could get my clients in. And all of these, I started seeing how all these other people were doing things in business, and it was all like these very technical client relation management systems like CRMs, and very techy. And I just use Google Docs. And I think what I realized, that my clients didn't care because they just loved that I got to know them and their energy. And that was the special thing. It wasn't really the deliverable of them going through a tech platform. And
Yes.
I think it's those things like you just said, how in your business it's kind of gone a bit, it's not maybe gone how you'd wanted it to when you start doing that. So that's, as soon as I started making those decisions, and it was like 5 years in, for the small things, that's when I started seeing how incredible it was when I started listening more to the small intuitive hits,
So
that
good.
huge results happened.
Amazing. Yeah, because I think what we find uncomfortable is not knowing. And I've been through a phase of rebranding. That's, why you're on the show today, is because I grabbed the chance to work with you on my new website, which
Yeah.
is basically tweaking what I used to do. I started my business teaching singing in order to gain confidence. And now it's more about voice in general. But that phase of not knowing is so uncomfortable, and you can just
Mm.
feel it. I mean, having your body, like in terms of your health, tell you something. Like, I'm just fascinated that the doctor would say, "Are you happy?"
Well, yes. So he was, I think he was, practicing from like Eastern medicine. And it was, I'm talking about maybe 9 years ago.
Mhm.
And that was like before all, I think people understood this a lot more. And I thought it was incredible when he said that to me. And I do know that I can feel things in my body when I'm not in a great place and stuff. And it is very potent when I've got friends that have got like one of my friends has got repeatedly had problems in her hip. And you can look into all the Eastern medicine and they will say that there's, or if you've got something in your throat, that it's like your voice isn't being able to be heard.
Yes, it's
Um,
like my teacher, my meditation teacher, calls it an early warning system. Like, that we get
mm,
these early warning signs of things. We're being asked to pay attention in some way. And if we don't understand that our body is trying to speak to us about everything going on in our lives, it's not just the physical, it's like your body's reacting to your relationships, to your work, to your lifestyle. And your body wants you to be happy. Like, just that idea of that
yeah.
it's good to be happy. I love that.
Isn't that funny that 9 years later, I'll always remember him saying that to me, "Are you happy?" And it was actually, what's really interesting, how we met. So when I was at the hospital, I was waiting to be seen, and it was the A&E place, because I thought I had like kidney stones. I mean, I think when you have that, you really are hobbled over, and I was in a lot of pain. And I was outside talking because the weekend, so this is happening on the Monday or the Tuesday, and the weekend before, I'd just been to a lunch in Somerset with an author of this book that I'd read, and it was her second book. And the first one I'd read was the book that changed my life and basically changed the course of everything that to where I am today. And it was Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass. And she wrote a second one, You Are a Badass at Making Money. And just that weekend, I'd been to a lunch where her coaching friend was hosting this lunch. And I asked Jen, I said, I've been reading your books and you talk about getting coaching. And I want to get a coach. I wonder if you can recommend any, or if you ever do it. And she said, I don't do it. But Kat, who's hosting this lunch, she is a really good friend of mine and she's a great coach. And then I decided, I think I want to work with her. And I was on a sales call, or I was in touch with someone that was working on her sales team that would take her discovery calls. And I was on touch with her outside the A&E department. And
So
just
that's the
before
new
I went in,
coach. The new coach is
no, it was the saleswoman for the coach.
okay.
And because Kat was busy and she like has other people that were taking these calls for her at the time. And I just remember speaking to her before I went in. And then I had the coach and the doctor say, "Are you happy?" And I was like, "No." And then I went back outside and I called up, her name was Rachel, and I called her up and I said, "I want to work with Kat." And it was a very, high investment for me, especially at the time with my fashion design salary. And I think we have these moments in our lives that are catalysts. One was the book, then it was working with Kat. And from that, I quit my job and just sort of trusted that the net would catch me, and it did. And then
Yay.
I met you a couple of years later through Kat,
That's
through a
right.
program she did. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I have Jen Sincero's, I have some of her post-it
Oh,
notes and, fridge magnets. And I have one here in front of me says, be grateful for all that you are and all that you are becoming.
oh, she's so good. And the becoming thing is very interesting. Um, if you'll allow me to talk about this a little bit,
Yes. And
because it's
encourage you to talk about it, please.
I have been on a real personal development journey since reading that book. And when I left my job, within 6 months after working with Kat, and doing a course with her, and I think it was the course that I met you on, after we did our one-to-one work. I had been single for a very long time, and I went to the doctor, said, I'm not feeling very great. I'm feeling a little bit depressed. I feel like there's, something wrong with me. And I ended up getting some therapy through the NHS, and it was really wonderful. And you explore a lot of stuff from your childhood, and you go through all of these things. And what came across was that I was a very confident person, but I had low self-esteem. And I didn't know what that meant, and that confidence and self-esteem were different at the time. All of this was new to me. And I think I've been on a journey, and the self-esteem is how I feel very confident in my skills as a web designer and as a creative and with my friends. But when it came to romantic feelings, and how I felt about myself and looks and all of that sort of stuff, or like how I was eating and all the health stuff. And I've just been on a journey with that. I've done hypnotherapy and done all of the work that they say to do, and like be kind to yourself. And I always remember thinking, the woman that I want to be is this, and the woman that I want to be is that. And I just had an epiphany about a week or so ago. And all of these things that that I imagine this woman to be, and I have a vision board and I have like visuals of, maybe the healthy, nutritious food she's eating, and she's looking after her body and she's exercising and she's taking care of herself and loving herself and saying all these nice things to herself. And I've really just been doing that. And then I just, had this thing where it's like, I'm the woman that I wanted to be. I am her. And I know it's a case of, we've always been that person, but I think it's until we realize it ourselves, then that's the aha moment.
Yeah. And it's the journey as well,
Yes.
because 5, 10 years ago, there were so many gaps that you weren't fully in that identity yet. And
Mm,
you've filled in so many of those gaps, and you've been so brave. It takes a lot of courage to face ourselves.
mm, yeah. Yeah, it's
And
been hard.
yeah, it is the thing. I think a lot of people feel like if they are in any way not right, or if they are, if they're not perfect in some way, that they should be hard on themselves. But there's a case for loving yourself no matter where you are at in your journey, or how
Mm,
any mistake that you've made. Like, love yourself when you're broke, love yourself when you're rich, love yourself when you're fat, when you're skinny, when you're with a guy, when you don't have a guy. To be able to accept yourself even when it's an uncomfortable moment. It takes some work. It takes a lot of kindness. So I remember reading a great book called Self Compassion by Kirsten Neff, and I loved that book because she was really just saying, you deserve to be compassionate to yourself. And a lot of us are too hard on ourselves, definitely.
yeah, I think we are. And I think it's funny, quite a bit of my journey is around probably about self-image and also food. And I read two really incredible books at the end of last year or the year before, and it was sometimes it's these books that really change my life. I'm hugely into like developing yourself like that, and one of them was from Riada, and it was called The Last Diet, and it's all about um, eating to nurture yourself and not having all of these weird feelings that we can have around food. And then the other one was Davinia Taylor, and that was called It's Not a Diet. And she talks about not calorie counting, but counting chemicals and, just eating nourishing food that feels good. And it was those books really that have just helped me calm down the chatter in my brain around food and around how I see myself. And it's just been such a nice process to just be like, I feel really good about myself because I'm eating well. And it is, and knowing that if I do have foods that are generally comfort foods, like that maybe are a bit more ultra processed or something, then that's okay. But I think in the past when I would do that, it just left me feeling not great and a bit groggy and yeah, like when you're eating like that all the time. So anyway, it's just I feel like that's one of the final pieces in like me just feeling much better about myself, because I feel like eating lots of vegetables or your protein or however you take your protein in, whether that's beans or meat, and drinking well. And I stopped drinking things like Pepsi Max all the time, which I was drinking a lot of, and starting to eat dark chocolate instead of other things. And I can't believe I'm even going into the food thing here on this podcast. I didn't expect this, but it has been definitely a final jigsaw puzzle for me.
Well, it's
And
part of this self kindness, this
yeah.
looking after yourself, and we're a whole person. Like, it's a holistic thing to be
Mm,
able to. look after yourself in that way. I think it's a really important message, and I'm really happy you opened up a bit about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but let's talk a little more about branding and, you know, this stepping into your power and being able to be seen by others for the gifts that we have, because that's really what you help people to do. Your clients are falling in love with their online presence because it matches who they are, right?
Mm. So the reason why I started this was because when I was looking for a coach, I was, just Googling ones locally to me when I was in London in Notting Hill. I was typing in coaches in Notting Hill, and I just didn't emotionally connect with any of them. And that's when I knew I've got this superpower or my zone of genius with the intuition, but also I I do photography as well. I don't do that as much, but I knew that I could really capture somebody's essence with photographs and make them feel at ease and comfortable. And I think having good imagery on a website is really important. But then when I was talking with my clients, and this is something, a skill I think I've always had, always been very empathetic, like an empath. I'm very interested in getting to know my clients and general passion and curiosity for who they are and why they're doing what they do. So some of my other friends that are web designers, they enjoy the design part of it. So they will stack lots of projects. They'll maybe do like 5 projects to 10 at one time. And it will be very hands off with the client. They will fill in their documents and, you know, not have much call time with one another, because that's not what they enjoy. Whereas for me, I enjoy the people aspect. So when I get to know who they are and their energy and stuff, it's a very vulnerable thing, I think, when you're either beginning a business or you're up leveling in your business like you are, or like a change of direction. I often find that you kind of know what you want to do, but sometimes you get a little bit lost with how to articulate that visually and in the written word. And I know that after so many years of doing this and working with so many service-based businesses that are also, very heart-led, that I'm able to listen to their stories and just get to their energy and their aura a little bit, so that when they'll always do a Pinterest board for me and I can really pinpoint the exact imagery that I really like, that I feel like matches you. And that's what we did with yours.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, and this is like really in the later years, because the more I've done this, is like really being able to tap into what it is that you're trying to say. And I think it's very difficult for us as individuals I think we all notice that we can give advice to somebody else very easily, but it's very difficult for us to take our own advice or give it to ourselves. So when you're writing your website copy or deciding what you want to do in your business or how to put this messaging across, it can be quite tricky. And because I've heard all of the nuances between what you're trying to say and like maybe find the golden thread, that when I get the copy back generally from the client, I can look at it and be like, I feel like this is not quite getting across who you are, or you said that you wanted to do this. And like we were actually, say for my clients that are transitioning, I was working with a guy recently and he's a coach, but he's such an incredible speaker. And he wants to do more speaking at like festivals and in corporate environments, and also at schools and stuff, to like help the younger generation dealing with their emotions. But the copy kept on going to coaching land. And when we were talking on a call, he kept on saying, well, with my one-to-one clients. And I'm like, yes, but we're trying to do the speaker thing. And it's about helping you position the authority that you want to be moving into. So I would say some advice. Sorry if I'm rambling here, but
This is
I
so
would.
useful, though, so I don't want to
Okay.
stop you.
Okay. So I would say to anybody that is starting a business, or also, when you're doing a personal brand at work and stuff, how you want to get yourself across, I really would get a big piece of paper and just sort of say, what are the objectives of what I'm trying to do? And so, for instance, with my previous client, his objective was that he wanted to be a speaker and show his authority in this. And he's got lots of great testimonials as well. So when you keep on going back to what you know or what you did, you've got to keep on looking back at that objective of what you're
The
doing with
becoming part.
the becoming part. Yes, exactly. And so for you, when we were doing your website, you had the singing was what you used to do, but you would, when we would have our chats and you would say all of the different ways that you would help people, I was like, well, we really need to make sure that we're getting that across in your copy. And a lot of the time, my clients might have lots of different skill sets that they've accumulated over the years. For instance, like with my more spiritual client, she is an artist, she's an author, she's a Reiki master, she is really works a lot with crystals and expert in that. But she's not going to teach you, how to do one of those things or say, this is how I'm going to help. What she's helping with is a transformation and maybe becoming a spiritual mentor for somebody that's struggling. And she'll use all of these different toolkits. But I think sometimes we can get, as business owners, we can get so stuck in the
Yeah.
minutia, I can never say that word,
No,
of
but I know what you're
rather
talking
than the
about.
transformation.
Yeah, and it's like the whole is greater than all the parts, but we,
Mm,
especially I mean, my whole thing has always been about confidence. Like I use singing to help people to find their confidence. But then
mm.
as the journey went along, I was using all of my other tools to help them with confidence. I was doing mantra meditation with them. I was doing affirmations. I was doing guided meditations, whatever it was they needed, because that was the way I worked. I would just relate to that person on that day and I would be guided how to move them along. But my website didn't hint to that enough. And so the new
Mm.
website, with your help, I think it represents me more. And I actually got a great um, testimonial for it from someone that my husband knows. He was like, the minute you open the website, it just makes you feel like you can step into confidence. Or he just said it was so
Oh,
inspirational, that just the way that it looked straight away. And that's an energy. I feel like there's something that I'd love to talk a little bit to you about, which is the energy that comes through once you do have the right visual and the right copy. There's some feeling of alignment. And this is the reason I picked you to do my website. When I looked at other websites you'd done, I could feel an energy from them. I could feel a warmth. I could sense that the person that I was reading about, was a real person. It didn't have that bland corporate. It's like a brochure with services,
mm,
coaching, whatever
mm.
it is. It wasn't cold. There was such an energy coming through it, and I think that's why someone else could put together a nice website, but having you help me with my website, I think really helped me capture an energy that people can feel then when they look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think energy is really important. And I think you can absolutely do that with design, website design. And, I was talking with, um, I signed a new client yesterday, and she just bought a course that was helping her with, the course was about online business manager course. And I looked at the website and I immediately felt, and it wasn't the most well-designed website, but I felt such a nice energy from it. She just looked nice and friendly, and the colors were soft, and that really resonated with me, and I just felt a warmth to her. Whereas there might be somebody that's got like a really bold, vibrant, spicy, passionate sort of personality, and it's like they might be quite blunt and to the point, and that energy will attract somebody else that's like really like
They need
on that
someone
same
direct.
wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs somebody direct, which is not my style. I'm quite blunt actually myself. I'm quite
But you
direct.
say it in
But
such a
in
kind way that
but in
nobody can take it badly.
but it's in a different way. And
Yeah.
I think but that energy really does matter, and it
Mm.
needs to match your frequency of how you are in person, because that's when somebody lands on your site and they're like, I like this person. Um, and there are some people that I just find jarring, and that's okay, because what that does is it filters through the people that aren't meant for you, and that's why a lot of my stuff is referral based, to be honest. But
So
when
what would you
people land on my
say?
website,
Yeah, I mean, I just think I can understand why people would recommend you, because it's a lovely thing to have your authentic truth and yourself reflected back. That's what you do, is you helped me to see myself very clearly, which allowed me to make the right decisions for the website.
mm,
But I'm curious what you would say to someone who hasn't tuned into that energy part yet, and maybe isn't trusting that, because we can make our minds up, right? Or we can trust that heart, or we can trust that intuition. So what advice would you give to someone maybe that's starting to learn to lean into intuition more?
I this is interesting because the first 4 years of my career or business, I didn't like my own website, and I think that was probably largely due to the fact that I didn't know who I was. And I was on a huge journey. I spoke about it with the personal development and my self-esteem and stuff like that. And I think that's okay. And it's just part of where you're at. And, you know, y- we're talking about websites at the moment, but like when you are just going through those phases, and to do, I don't mean to be bringing it back to the weight thing, but I, at the beginning of lockdown, so gosh, like over 4 years ago, I lost a lot of weight, and I lost identity of self. I didn't know what clothes I wanted to wear anymore, or like what would suit me. And then that was quite a bit of my identity, was weirdly wrapped around that. And then, you know, the woman I wanted to be, or like was becoming, I just felt a bit of an identity crisis, to be honest. So when it comes to intuition, I just kept on going, and just small steps on the path. And I would say, again, I'm going to use another client, a recent client that I was speaking with. I feel like they're at the big, they're still not at the end point of their journey where they feel very settled and comfortable in
Mm.
themselves, maybe. And when we were talking, I felt like there was trying to be like, oh, well, sometimes I do this and I wear this and it's a bit mad and whatever. But then when we're having the conversation, I really felt that she was very grounded and she liked being outdoors and stuff. And she has like this fun, playful side. But I felt like it was a bit masking how she really felt, and that she was a bit more of a softer, like get stuff done and quite like
Hmm.
bold like that. But I could sense in her this other side, and I would say, you know, if she might come to her photo shoot and like be wearing all of this elaborate fancy clothes that actually weren't integral to who she really was.
Yeah.
So putting on more of a show. And I think that that's because you're doing what you think other people might want and not listening to your gut and who you are. And I think you should always try and do that. And when I look back at these photo shoots that I had, I was kind of maybe the me at the time, but none of it ever felt quite right.
Mm.
And then when I think I landed on my style, and I don't mean to put it around clothes. Obviously, you know, I was in fashion design and
No,
stuff,
but
but
there's something to this because we're talking about trusting your intuition. We're talking about finding your true self. But it's the small choices that we make every day, like do you prefer chamomile tea or do you prefer coffee? And really trusting your decision on that. I was chatting to someone last night about, do you remember the movie Runaway Bride?
yeah.
And Julie Roberts is in it, and no matter which relationship she's in, she always prefers the type of eggs that the partner likes. So when she's with one guy, she likes scrambled eggs, and when she's with the other guy, she likes omelets. So she changes based on who she's around. She didn't know what she really liked. And when we are learning who we are, we're choosing what we like, and simple things like choosing what you wear and choosing what you want to eat and choosing who you want to be around. That's where we learn. That's where we're testing. Well, maybe I like this style, and then you wear it, and then you're like, maybe not anymore. Or maybe I know some people are chameleons as well and can have different avatars that they use. But I like that you brought it back down to clothing. And I would say, perhaps some of the listeners, if you're wearing the same thing for a long time and you haven't, swapped enough things out, are you stepping in? Have you allowed yourself to step into a new version of yourself? Because we're evolving internally all the time. And if we don't allow our environment and what we wear and what we do to evolve with it, then we don't see the changes that want to come as quickly as they
Mm.
could.
That's actually so. Again, when I said I had this identity crisis, when I'd lost this weight, and I looked at all of the clothes that I had that weren't quite right for me anymore, but I was like, God, this is like a different person. It wasn't about the weight. It was just like I've got this wardrobe of clothes that just don't feel like me anywhere more. And, you know, you always feel like you're wasteful. You know, like I can't get rid of this because it fits me, you know, it's this, but you just feel maybe a bit drab, or you just feel like this is not my style anymore. And we're in this, you know, we don't want to do waste or anything, but there are things in the UK, I don't know if wherever your listeners are, you're in the US, like called Vinted, but then you've got eBay and stuff where you could sell these things or give things to charity, and or flea markets, is it you
Yeah.
guys have? And and then so what I ended up doing was, and this was like one of the most empowering things for me, is I knew I was having a photo shoot around this time, and it's the one that's on my website that feels so me. Although I probably don't wear fancy shirts all the time anymore,
Oh, but I
but
love that shirt on you. What, you had some sort of a
yeah,
silky shirt. It was so
yeah,
luxurious, gorgeous.
yeah, and I still like it for like my brand and stuff, but I maybe don't wear it on the all the time in the day. But I had this opportunity to be like, who do I want to be? Like, and I always had this imagining of the sort of wardrobe I really wanted to wear, but I always thought, well, that's not for me. And it was like a weird thing, right? So you and I are both into, with our coach and stuff, we've done a lot of money mindset work, right?
Mhm.
And one of the little things that I really love to do with money mindset to improve my money mindset is incremental upgrades. So one of them was I upgraded my towels. So my mum and dad had bought my towels like at university or when I'd first moved to London. And I had these towels and it was like 10 years on, but they were great quality towels, okay? And I remember thinking one day, when I've made lots of money, I'm going to buy my towels from the white company. And I remember speaking to our coach, actually, Kat, and I said, Kat, I've just gone in and they've got like the basic range, but then the extra, like the premium range is so soft and fluffy. And my old towels were purple. So and I always had this thing that I couldn't have white towels because that was like rich lady towels, and like that's like I'm not the sort of person that could have white fluffy white company towels. And Kat was like, get the fucking towels. And I was like, I'm going to get the fucking towels. And I did. And that was probably one of my biggest incremental upgrades. So then when I had the clothing thing, I was like, the woman I've always wanted to be like. She dresses like in beige and camel and cream and white. And I always wanted to like wear, I don't know, it's because I'd worn so much color in my 20s and I loved it and I still love color. But I just wanted to get more basics like that made, some
Kind
like
of a
really nice
rich,
jeans. Yeah.
elegant. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought I never felt like that was me. But then I was like, who says these rules and stuff? And and I have my other stuff as well, and it's not all that, but it just, when I re-got my wardrobe, it was like, I just felt good in my new clothes.
I love this. I
Um,
hope that the listeners appreciate this idea of, can you step into who you're becoming, and can you make that becoming something tangible, visible, and real in your everyday life? I'm afraid we're getting close to the end of our time together. I'm really sad because I could keep talking to you forever.
yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to anyone listening, that, a piece of advice or something you'd like to reiterate from earlier?
I think I've got two things that are really huge in my life at the moment. One is this sort of self-esteem issue and how good I feel and stuff at the moment. And I think a lot of that is down to just for so long I never felt good enough, and just realizing that really we are good enough wherever we are. And I just wish I'd sort of learned that, or learned to be kinder to myself earlier on, and just changed the language going on inside of my head, and just trying to, when I would say these unkind words, I'm like, that is so not true, that you are so loved and you are wonderful. And just I wish I'd got that piece a little bit earlier and really done the work to work on that if that was a problem. And I think the other thing that is a huge thing that I do, and that's having so much gratitude for my life, and gratitude that I've got my health, that I've taken the bold leap and moved to an area of the world that I love, the Cotswolds, that I can go out for lovely walks. And I'll more often than not got quite emotional when I'm out on a walk, and I'll just look and I'll be like, wow, look at where I am and look at this life that I've built for myself. And just, I have so much gratitude for my present moment. And I think that when we look to the past and the future, we can get, depression and anxiety and overwhelm. But if you really ground yourself in gratitude and for where you are now, and just always try and see the positive somehow in your day, then that just raises your frequency and makes you a lot of a happier person.
Yeah, and it isn't easy. I know for myself, even this morning, I had negative talk going on in my mind just as I was waking up, and I was like, "Oh, please just help! I need to remind myself to feel good. I need to remind myself what it is to feel good." And I think I've always felt I've got complete control over this, and I can get myself
Mm,
back on track. But there are times when we'll feel a little low, and we need help, or we need support, and we need others. And I love that those two things. It's the kind self talk and the feeling gratitude for where you are,
mm.
that can bring you back to feeling better again very quickly.
Yeah, yeah, and it does, and yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. I've really, really
Thank you for having
appreciated
me.
it. And thank you for making my website look so amazing.
Well, thank you for being the wonderful client. It was an absolute joy working with you.
Well, I just knew it was a good match. So I'll be sharing some of your contact details and your website. Everyone need to go onto Liz's website and see her beautiful design, and feel that energy as well, because you'll recognize it now having listened to the podcast. And thank you again for listening to the Resonate podcast with Aideen. We'll see you again at the next episode. Take care. Bye bye.